Hello, I'm a woman in my 40s whose heart aches whenever I look at my husband. My husband is a truly good person, sometimes to the point of seeming foolish. There are times when his nature frustrates me, but still, I cherish and love him deeply as a good husband to me and a good father to our children. My husband carried a painful past that caused him and me much emotional distress. It broke my heart to see him constantly being hurt. However, thanks to my husband who knew how to be resolute when necessary, we have finally found peace and are living well now. I'd like to share this long story with you. I am the youngest daughter in a typical family with two older brothers. My father worked at a company and my mother worked for a long time as a school cafeteria cook, raising us. I worked in the food service industry after becoming an adult, and married my husband at the age of 30 after dating for 2 years. My husband was a genuinely kind man who loved his family. He had a special family history. He was an orphan, who was adopted by his in-laws' family when he was 7 after my sister was born. They couldn't conceive a second child despite many attempts, which worried both of them. So after much thought they adopted me 3 years younger than my sister. Since Dad ran a small factory, and our financial situation wasn't bad, they figured they could raise 2 children. He told me my husband, who had lived in sorrow, said he felt like he owned the world back then after the adoption. His in-laws were very good to him. His father-in-law in particular cherished him deeply. My husband lived regarding his in-laws as his saviors for taking him in. However, not all days were happy, as his father-in-law poured a lot of affection on him. His sister-in-law, his wife's sister, gradually started to feel competitive towards him. My sister was very jealous and upset, feeling like I stole father's love. At first my mother-in-law was kind to me, but I guess she naturally favored her biological daughter more. After that she increasingly looked out only for my sister and often scolded me. Still, I liked my mother-in-law. After all, she and Dad took me in as their son, fed me, looked after me, and did everything for me. You must have been hurt a lot. Of course, I'm only human, so I did get hurt when my mother-in-law began treating my sister and me differently. But whenever I felt resentful towards her, I tried to correct myself. I thought it was selfish of me to want the same treatment as my biological sister, when I wouldn't even exist without my mother and father-in-law, even though the adoption was his mother-in-law's decision. She gradually changed her mind, yet my husband always felt grateful to his mother-in-law for taking him in as her son during our dating years. Hearing about his family history made me feel very sorry for him, but after we got married, I saw that my mother-in-law favored only my sister-in-law, even more than I had realized. Mommy bought loads of marinated crab today, just the way our Yoon Jeong likes it. Come on, let's eat. Let's eat what? Is it just side dishes and marinated crab? Dae-yi can't touch crab, because he doesn't handle fishy food well. On a day when the kids finally visit, you should have prepared something Dae-yi likes. Oh, I also made the cabbage soup Dae-yi likes. Why are you trying to make me look like a bad mother? It's okay, father. I can eat 2 bowls of rice with just the soup if I get something I like. My sister should also get something she likes, to be fair. Thank you for the meal, mother-in-law. My sister-in-law was living with her parents-in-law. Even when my husband and I visited, my mother-in-law paid no attention to my husband's preferences. It was hurtful to see her buy a lot of marinated crab, which my husband couldn't eat, and then tell him to just eat a lot of cabbage soup. My father-in-law came home later with lots of meat for my husband, but my mother-in-law put every piece she cooked right in front of my sister-in-law. She also distinguished between their bowls, even when serving the same soup or stew. The one with more meat or ingredients always went to my sister-in-law, no matter how much my father-in-law looked out for my husband and scolded my mother-in-law. She seemed to ignore him. Sister-in-law, everything best in our house is mine always, and I always come first before Dae-yi. I'm the eldest daughter after all. That's just how our family is. My sister-in-law was a person with not an ounce of remorse towards my husband. I knew her statement about being the eldest daughter clearly implied the arrogant, meaning I am the biological daughter of this house. My shocked father-in-law scolding my sister-in-law and apologizing to my husband and me, along with my husband's slumped shoulders, confirmed my thoughts. My sister-in-law was running a pretty large Korean beef restaurant with her father-in-law's help. Greedy for money, she used few employees to save on labor costs and even tried to profit from her family. Once she asked us to come and buy from her, so my husband and I visited, and I just couldn't help but shake my head in disbelief. Auntie, move faster. Auntie, put less side dishes. What profit will we make if you serve that much? I might just fire you, my sister-in-law just shouted at the staff, who were busy due to understaffing and didn't help with the work herself. It was total power abuse. I felt so sorry for the employees. On top of that, my sister-in-law even tried to overcharge us by about $70. Uni sister-in-law, I calculated it beforehand, and I think you made a mistake with the money. No, when you come to support a business, you're supposed to add about $70 to the bill and pay. That way you're not giving us an extra service, drink, or even bringing us more side dishes, yet you're asking for $70 extra. This is definitely something to report, don't you think? Flustered by her attitude, I intentionally laughed and casually mentioned reporting her. Only then did my sister-in-law grimace and only accept the correct amount. After that, we absolutely never went to her restaurant to eat. I heard that my sister-in-law had even once broken off an engagement after playing mind games with the groom's side, because she never wanted to lose. This greedy sister-in-law was also uninterested in showing filial piety to her parents-in-law on Parents' Day, birthdays, or holidays. It was only my husband who took care of his parents-in-law, both materially and spiritually. My sister-in-law never even gifted them a simple piece of underwear, saying she was too busy feeding and spending on herself. How great would it be if Yoon Jong was even half as considerate as Dae Yi? Dae Yi is my pride. I am always grateful. Unlike my mother-in-law, who only shielded my sister-in-law, my father-in-law cherished my husband more than my sister-in-law. He always took my husband's side in arguments with my mother-in-law and tried his best to look out for him. When we got married, my father-in-law gave us a generous $105,000. I later heard that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law had made a fuss about it. Dad, when they're grown, they should live on their own. Why are you helping him with such a large amount of money? Do you think he'll even be grateful for it? Don't you remember me setting up my restaurant? It cost a lot more than $105,000 back then, when I asked you for the money. Yet have you ever bought me even a piece of thermal underwear? Honey, honestly, Dae Yi isn't our biological child, so why are you supporting him so much? Even giving him $35,000 would be too much in my opinion. What are you talking about? You should be ashamed if you keep neglecting Dae Yi, who treats you so well. You'll regret it bitterly later. I'm so uneasy about closing my eyes and leaving Dae Yi alone. My husband had accidentally overheard his mother-in-law and sister-in-law protesting to his father-in-law before our marriage. Later, when he shared the story with me while drunk, his bitterness made my heart ache. Imagining how devastated he must have felt. Dear, you know, I'm very grateful to you, right? Our poor kind Dae Yi. If I'm not here, you must always protect him. I trust you very much. After the marriage, my father-in-law looked out for my husband, who was upset because of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. He gave me congratulatory money when I gave birth to my son and daughter a year apart, was kind to me, and always asked me to take care of my husband. Both my husband and I genuinely loved only my father-in-law. My husband also really liked my side of the family as much as he liked my father-in-law. My parents were very fond of my kind and steady husband. My brothers also cherished and looked after him like a real younger brother-in-law. Do you play games? My brother and I meet up in a game often. Oh, I play that game too. Hyung Nim, brother-in-law, great. Just as I thought. The three of us click. How about we meet in the game every Thursday evening, even if we can't meet often? Let's get together often, not just for games. We're like brothers. Unlike my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, my husband naturally loved my parents and brothers, who treated him like a real family member. That's why my husband was exceptionally good to my side of the family. Of course I was good to my father-in-law, however, I simply couldn't bring myself to be kind to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. At first I was only observing the atmosphere in the in-laws' home, because I found them difficult and unfamiliar, but after adapting somewhat, I too started accumulating resentment. I decided I had to protect my husband, so whenever we visited, I began openly looking out for him. What did you buy so much of? Oh, I was planning to make some duck roast and spicy, stir-fried duck. Father-in-law and my husband both like duck. What? Oh, doesn't my Yoon Jiang not even touch duck? Oh really? Well then my sister-in-law can just eat something else anyway. My mother-in-law must have prepared a lot of dishes that my sister-in-law likes today, right? So, I'll just prepare what my husband likes. Now, I just need to serve the soup for Dae Yi and me. Why are you putting such a mountain of meat in it? We'll save the leftovers for our family to eat later. Leftovers? There's not much here. My husband is very weak lately, and so am I. So, I need to make sure he's well nourished. I intentionally brought ingredients that my sister-in-law couldn't eat and cooked with them, and I ignored my mother-in-law's objections, filling my husband's soup bowl with plenty of ingredients. My mother-in-law's expression completely froze, and my jealous sister-in-law even openly tried to swap my husband's soup bowl with hers, but I stopped her actions by speaking out frankly, just as my mother-in-law used to do. Uni, I deliberately put a lot in this bowl for my husband. It's my husband's. I apologize, but my husband is my first priority. I ask for your understanding. Our Dae Yi married a wonderful wife. He must feel so secure. My father-in-law chuckled, and my husband also blushed a little, seemingly pleased. While living in such conflict with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, a great tragedy struck the family. My father-in-law, whose health had rapidly deteriorated, passed away after half a year of battling illness, 4 years after I got married. Unlike my sister-in-law, who neglected her father-in-law during his illness, my husband devoted himself to his care. Of course, I helped my husband too. A month before he closed his eyes, my father-in-law, through a lawyer, distributed his assets equally between my husband and sister-in-law. Since the factory had been running at a loss and had been shut down long ago, my father-in-law left the family home and assets to my mother-in-law, and he gifted $56,000 each to my husband and sister-in-law. Despite this, my sister-in-law and mother-in-law caused a huge scene in front of my father-in-law, who was lying in the hospital. Dad, no matter how much you love Dae Yi, how could you split the money equally with your biological child? This is so unfair. What's unfair? If you add up the living expenses from when you were an adult and stayed at home and the money I gave you to open your restaurant, I've actually given Dae Yi less. I would like to give it all to Dae Yi, but I thought this would make you and your mother bully him less. This is my generosity. While I've been lying here, did you nurse me like Dae Yi and his wife did? What did you do? You just came and wasted time every day, and now you're making a scene over money with your sick father. Honey, even I think this is wrong. What's wrong? You should be ashamed. If you keep neglecting Dae Yi, who treats you so well, you'll regret it bitterly later. That's why I'm so worried about leaving Dae Yi behind. My father-in-law erupted at my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who were behaving this way, right in front of my husband and me. My husband was so upset that he cried. Before he passed away, my father-in-law held my hand and asked me to look after my husband. I couldn't fully protect Dae Yi, because I had to look out for your mother-in-law and sister-in-law as my family. It's a shameful thing. So dear, you must take good care of our Dae Yi. He is kind, too kind, and always endures his mother and sister. Please protect him well. Yes, I promise I will. Please don't worry about my husband, father-in-law. I promised my father-in-law that I would. A little later, my father-in-law peacefully closed his eyes. After my father-in-law passed away, my sister-in-law started investing the money he had left her in stocks. At first, she seemed to be doing well, boasting and buying luxury goods. As expected, I'm smart. I don't understand people who lose money in stocks. It just goes up if you study the basics. Sister-in-law, instead of looking for a new job, why don't you try stocks like me? Well, I guess only smart people make money this way. Because my husband worried about his mother-in-law, who had raised him even after his father-in-law's death, we visited the house often. That's when we saw my sister-in-law showing off. However, that must have been just beginner's luck, because my sister-in-law gradually started looking dimmer. Then one day, about 1.5 years after my father-in-law passed away, my sister-in-law asked us for money. It was truly the first time we had ever seen her humble herself and ask us for anything. "Dayi, sister-in-law, please save me. Just lend me $70,000. Oh, what about all the money father gave you?" "I lost it all in stocks, and I even took out a loan to try and make up for it in stocks, but I lost that too. If I can't repay that loan right now, I'll lose my restaurant. I really want to save the restaurant that father set up for me." My mother-in-law also begged us to help my sister-in-law just this one time. Honestly, considering everything my sister-in-law had done, and my lack of faith that she would never touch stocks again, I didn't want to lend her the money. But my husband wanted to help her, adding the inheritance he received from his father-in-law. If I had grown up in the orphanage, I wouldn't have received the wedding funds or the inheritance from father. So, I want to contribute even just a little to helping my sister, who is father's biological child, with money that wasn't originally mine. She promised to pay it back. I know you're frustrated because of me, but thinking about how upset Father in heaven would be to see my sister cry makes my heart too heavy. My husband couldn't turn away from his sister-in-law, not for her sake, but because he thought of his father-in-law who had been so good to him. I didn't trust my sister-in-law, but the help he received from his father-in-law was his money, wasn't it? I couldn't ignore my husband's look and eventually gave in to his wishes. However, we made sure to get a promissory note. My sister-in-law borrowed the money, with a promise to repay it within 3 years, but trouble started brewing in less than 2 years, let alone 3. First, my sister-in-law failed to pay even a single interest payment, claiming her restaurant business was doing terribly. When I went to check a few times, I saw that the place was indeed empty, only attracting flies. It wasn't great before, but it wasn't this empty. Why did it get like this? I don't know. It's all because of those annoying people. When I pressed her for the specific reason, the story was appalling. My sister-in-law's restaurant had become notorious in local communities and mom's online cafes. Stories of poor hygiene, reusing side dishes, and staff abuse spread quickly by word of mouth from customers, and she even received multiple reports to local authorities, leading to inspections and temporary business suspensions. My sister-in-law had ruined the restaurant, which had cost so much to open with her own hands, and was simply blaming others. I asked my sister-in-law, "How did you plan to repay our money?" It seemed the business started failing even before she borrowed the money. Her answer was utterly absurd. "Actually, the part about the loan was a lie." "What? Then why did you borrow the money?" "To try and recover the money I lost in stocks with more stocks. But I thought you wouldn't lend it if I told you the truth, so I just lied. I really did intend to pay it back. But I'm sorry, I've already lost all the money you lent me. I'm just telling you this now because I knew it would be found out soon." Ah, I feel a little relieved. My husband and I were completely dumbfounded. My sister-in-law had lied to us out of pure greed for stocks, not because she wanted to save the restaurant or repay a loan. She ended up losing the money she borrowed, and her restaurant was failing. Her audacity was simply ridiculous. Even my kind-hearted husband thought this was too much and raised his voice. "I lent you the money without hesitation because I thought of you, sis. How can you be so brazen? This isn't just about me, that money also belongs to my wife. We're a couple. I can't let my wife be a fool because of me. You must repay the money immediately. I told you I don't have the money. Just sue me. The restaurant is like this, so how can I repay that money? Just think of it as giving back father's inheritance which you got undeservedly to me. Doesn't that work?" "How can you say that? Uni, why is it undeserved? It's the rightful inheritance my husband received for his filial piety to father-in-law as a child. My husband was far more devoted to father-in-law than you were. My husband helped you because he still considered you family. How could you do this? You know we signed a promissory note, right? If you don't somehow get the money and pay us back, we're going to file a lawsuit." Infuriated by the shameless sister-in-law, I shouted that we would file a lawsuit. My sister-in-law's expression hardened. She rolled her eyes for a moment and then made a different proposal. "Even if you sue me, I really don't have the money. All I have left is this failing restaurant. If you really want your money back, why don't you take over the restaurant? How about transferring the entire restaurant in exchange for clearing my debt to you? This is the best I can do." My sister-in-law was proposing to exchange the failing restaurant for the debt. It felt like she was asking us to take over the restaurant, at a ridiculously low price. In fact, my husband and I were already looking at properties to open a restaurant together. At the time, I was a stay-at-home mother caring for our children, and my husband, who was the sole breadwinner, was under immense stress from the contempt and excessive workload from his newly appointed manager. He had been persevering for the sake of me and our children, but the stress was so intense that he developed alopecia areata and lost 6 kilograms. So, I suggested that he quit his job and open a restaurant with the money we had saved plus his retirement funds. Our children were old enough that I was also looking for work. Moreover, after hearing about our plan, my own mother offered to contribute money and partner with us to open a restaurant. My mother was a veteran who had worked for a long time in the school kitchen, and I also had experience in the food service industry, so we planned to open a restaurant. After long discussions with my husband and consulting with my mother, we decided to take over my sister-in-law's restaurant. Although her restaurant was failing, its location was not bad. It was in the downtown area of a city in Gyeonggi-do where we lived with high foot traffic, and the main advantage was that we didn't have to pay premium and brokerage fees separately. Your sister-in-law said she doesn't have any money anyway, so even if you sue, you won't get anything if she just claims she's broke. Furthermore, with such realistic advice from others, we chose to try and save the restaurant rather than proceed with a lawsuit. The debtor Jang Yoon-jeong agrees to fully repay the debt of $70,000 to the creditor, Jang Dae-yi, by transferring the business rights and all facilities of the restaurant. We signed a contract for repayment in kind and took over the restaurant. The cost of taking over facilities like the hood and refrigerator, as well as the premium for occupying the space, were all set off against the money we had loaned her. Although it was a bit of a loss in the short term, I was determined to revive the restaurant. My sister-in-law beamed, said no takesies backsies later, and even presented a written pledge. We too wanted to ensure she couldn't make any claims later, so we got her seal on the pledge. Afterward, my husband quit his job and the three of us, my husband, my mother, and I began working hard to open the Korean set menu restaurant we had planned. A Korean set menu definitely needs dried yellow corvina, don't you think? It tastes so good. You're right, Mom, and we must eat it with cold green tea water. Before doing the interior, we visited famous restaurants all over the country. We went to Korean set menu restaurants, Bikban home-style meal places, regional specialty restaurants, and fusion eateries in every province. Jeolla-do, Gyeongsang-do, Cheongshang-do, tasting food, studying recipes, and deciding on our menu. Then, while my husband was meticulous about the store concept and interior design, my mother developed recipes and decided on the dishes and courses. Although it was technically taking over my sister-in-law's restaurant, we completely changed everything from the sign and menu to the interior. The cost for that alone was enormous. After finally opening the restaurant, we put all our energy into marketing and promotion. Also, because the store was large, the number of dishes was high, and we aimed for premium service. We had to hire hall staff. We never treated our employees poorly, even when we were only making losses. We ensured their salaries were not lacking, and we cared about their meals and break times. As a result, both the hall Staff and the kitchen aunties worked as diligently as if it were their own store. Because of all this effort, our restaurant started gaining popularity and becoming very successful. About 2 years after opening, while I wouldn't call it a monumental success, we had many customers on weekdays and weekends alike, and it was hard to accommodate walk-in guests because we were always fully booked. About 3 years after opening the store, we had recovered all our initial investment and started turning a solid profit. The actual loss we incurred from lending money to my sister-in-law had been covered a long time ago. Around that time, my mother retired from the restaurant, saying she had helped enough. "Mom, thank you so much. We will always repay the kindness you've shown us." Repay? I've recovered my investment handsomely, and am leaving with my share of the profits. My husband and I were very grateful, as we knew how much my mother had worked to help us at an age when she should be resting. My husband was even more dedicated to my side of the family and my mother, saying it was all thanks to my mother-in-law. After our success, my husband also took good care of his mother-in-law, as much as my family. He said he shouldn't repay the kindness of being raised by her with ingratitude, even if she favored my sister-in-law. However, seeing our success made my sister-in-law extremely jealous. "Hey, Zhang Daiyi, you know you're living so well, all because I handed over the restaurant to you, right? Sister-in-law, be good to me. We succeeded because of our own efforts. Otherwise, why would we succeed while you failed in the same location?" Every time we visited the in-laws' house, my sister-in-law acted as if it was all thanks to her, demanding pocket money and openly showing her envy. I was dumbfounded and snapped back, but my husband didn't even bother to respond. At the time, my sister-in-law had no experience other than the restaurant, so she struggled to find a job and briefly worked as a restaurant server. But since she was used to being the boss, imagine how angry she must have been working as a mere employee. My sister-in-law, who had been employed twice, quit both times shortly after and was living as a perpetual unemployed person. She was surviving by slowly draining the money my father-in-law left to my mother-in-law. That's why my sister-in-law was even more envious, and my mother-in-law always took her side. Well, Yunjiang made a stepping stone for your success. In a way, your gifts and pocket money to me are also thanks to our Yunjiang, aren't they? Mother-in-law, why is that thanks to my sister-in-law? It's because my husband is kind. Honestly, I have so many resentments toward you. I'm holding back because my husband says he shouldn't be ungrateful to the mother who raised him. But hearing this, I feel like I need to speak my mind today. Enduring it for my husband's sake was one thing, but one day I was so angry that I lashed out at my mother-in-law. My husband felt very sorry for me, seeing his mother-in-law and sister-in-law never say a kind word to him or me. No matter how well he treated them, my husband seemed to be deep in thought. Then things escalated during a dinner out for my mother-in-law's birthday. While we were eating, my mother-in-law said something utterly ridiculous. "Daiyi, it's time you return that restaurant to your sister." What? What kind of absurd thing is that to say? Don't you talk to your mother like that. Your sister is the original owner of that restaurant. You and your wife can find other jobs easily if you quit, but your sister never had a steady job, so it's hard for her to get hired elsewhere. Don't you feel sorry for your sister who's still unemployed? And if you think about it, your father gave your sister that store, so it's only right that you return it to her if you respect your father. Mom is right. Now that I think about it, I gave it away at too much of a loss before. I didn't even get premium money. If you don't want to give back the store, at least give me about $70,000 instead of the premium money I didn't get. My mother-in-law suddenly demanded we hand over the restaurant. My sister-in-law, as if they had planned it, immediately jumped in, demanding the restaurant or the money. My mother-in-law then drove the final nail into the coffin for us, who were speechless from disbelief. "If you don't give the restaurant back to your sister, or at least $70,000, be prepared never to see your mother again." Mother-in-law, if you look at our restaurant, My mother-in-law and my wife did all the menu development, so my wife's stake is essentially much bigger. It's not my place to make a decision like that. Please stop making such baseless demands. What baseless demands? Fine, you choose. Dear, give back the store or give our Yoon Jiang $70,000, or, if you don't want to do either, get a divorce. You know our Dae-yi is a good boy, so he'll do what his mother tells him, even if he doesn't want to. You love our Dae-yi a lot, right? Then you'll have to listen to me, won't you? What will you do? My mother-in-law even brought up divorce, causing a complete scene. My sister-in-law looked smug next to her. They clearly saw both me, who loved my husband, and my husband, who valued family loyalty, as easy targets. I decided to shatter their illusion. Yes, I love my husband very much, because he's the kindest and most principled person I've ever met. But if my husband is the type to divorce me over manipulation, not knowing who truly cares for him, then I don't need him either. You choose, my husband, me, or your family. I will absolutely not give your sister the money or the store. I said that because I trusted my husband. However, I was also prepared to get a divorce, if my husband truly couldn't turn away from his family even then. But as expected, my husband chose me. He was so angry that his face flushed red. He grabbed the envelope of pocket money that was next to my mother-in-law. That envelope contained 1 million, approx $750 my husband had put in for her birthday. My husband angrily confronted his surprised mother-in-law. Why are you taking that? Because it seems you don't think of me as your son at all, mother. Despite the respect I show you as a parent, I no longer want to give you anything on your birthday or any other day. What? Mother, I have done my best not to be an unfilial son, who forgets the kindness of being adopted and raised. I would comfort myself by saying, don't be sad. I'm okay no matter how much you discriminated between me and my sister. After father passed away, it became even harder to visit the house, but I thought I should take care of you and my sister for father's sake. But I won't do it anymore. I've realized for sure that to you, mother, I'm just a fool to be exploited, nothing more and nothing less. What did you say? You ungrateful wretch, who doesn't know the kindness of being raised. See, Mom, I told you not to raise a black-haired beast, ungrateful person. My mother-in-law was greatly shocked and enraged by my husband's unprecedented behavior. My sister-in-law gaped, fanning the flames. I retaliated against my sister-in-law. That's not something you should say, Uni. Are you such a dutiful daughter who repays kindness so well that you squandered the inheritance? Father left you in stocks and are now freeloading off mother. At your age. What did you just say, sister-in-law? No, I'm not finished. My husband tried his best throughout his life to be a dutiful son to his mother and father. Even though they weren't his biological parents, he took care of father-in-law with incomparable devotion when he was ill, and he's the one who fulfilled all his duties as a son, giving pocket money and gifts when due. Compared to you, who never even cooked a simple seaweed soup for mother-in-law's or father-in-law's birthdays to save money, my husband deserves a monument from the country for his filial piety. Yes. Then how can an outsider Dae-yi be the same as our child Yoon Jiang? It's only right that Dae-yi is more devoted since we picked up and raised an orphan. How dare you try to lecture your sister? My mother-in-law sided with my sister-in-law and snapped at me again. Her words made me feel even sorrier for my husband. So, I glared and shouted back at my mother-in-law. Yes, my husband should have been good too. Father-in-law 1,000 times. 1,000,000 times, but I genuinely think there's no need for him to be good to you anymore, mother. After living as parent and child for decades, you exploited my husband's kind heart, received all the filial piety, and yet you still call him a fool. You, mother, do not deserve my husband's devotion, so, just live happily receiving the filial piety only from my sister-in-law, who is just as shameless and lacking in conscience as you are. I shouted, intending never to see my in-laws again. And my husband too declared his break from my mother-in-law. I will never forget the gratitude I feel towards you, mother, but I cannot hurt my wife, who entrusted her life to me. If you insist on tearing my wife and me apart with such outrageous reasons, I will simply cut you off. I've done enough. So, mother, please cling only to the sister you cherish so much for the rest of your life. I will only care for the genuine family members who value me. Yeah, you two have to pay the bill before you leave. Hey, having vented our frustration, we walked out without even paying the bill, ignoring my sister-in-law's demand to pay. All the way home, my husband cried endlessly, "Father, I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore." I felt so sorry for him that even I, who was driving, couldn't stop the tears. After that, my husband firmly cut ties with his mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They say a kind person is terrifying when they finally turn their back on someone, and that's what my husband became. We didn't bat an eye at their outbursts. My husband immediately called the police without hesitation. Seeing his resolute demeanor, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were startled and immediately stopped talking. We then chastised them. "Mother, unlike you, father raised me as his own child. I will live my life always grateful to him. Even if I live my entire life trying to repay that kindness, it won't be enough. But I think I've repaid you enough, mother. Please consider the unreturned kindness to be offset by the resentment for how you constantly gave me wounds by treating me differently from my sister. I apologize for being an ungrateful black-haired beast, but no matter what you say, please stop the gaslighting that my husband's life would have been a mess without his mother. No matter who looks at it, my husband did his utmost for you, mother, and Uni, we would have been this successful anywhere else. This success is the result of our hard work, not because we got this restaurant. That's why we succeeded while you failed in this same good location. And no one knows that. Even if that's true, you don't get a single penny of my share. We took over this restaurant from you at a loss, and that's called a successful investment. It's the basic principle to invest with an eye on the future, even if there's a loss now. What pathetic person demands a share of the investment profit from a building they sold for a pittance? You don't even know the basics of investment. And that's why you lost all your stocks and ruined this restaurant, which was in a great location. No matter how much you search for us and cause a scene, you won't get anything from us. So, please stop coming here before you cause even greater damage to yourselves. We drew a clear line with them, and when the police arrived, my mother-in-law looked crestfallen. Realizing my husband's mind was truly made up, my sister-in-law kept raging. But eventually both of them had to be forced out by the police. Thankfully, they haven't visited the store since then. Since then, my husband and I have been successfully running the store, only caring for my family. My husband struggled initially, but later said he felt relieved. Even without mother, I have you, the kids, and your family by my side. I was able to become so much stronger because I have a family who loves and trusts me like that. I will try to be even happier so I don't hurt the family who loves me. That's the way to repay everyone and to make our children happy adults. Just as my husband said, since he cut ties with his in-laws, my family has cherished him even more. Everyone was concerned about the hurt he had endured. My husband is now much better to my family. He keeps giving my mother pocket money and gifts, saying our restaurant's success is all thanks to her. So much so that she often shakes her head in disbelief. Then she usually breaks into a smile, saying, "Our son-in-law's kind heart can't be helped." With my family cherishing my husband, I, too, plan to comfort his wounds and live happily. I don't know if we'll be able to live the rest of our lives without seeing my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, but no matter what, I intend to be my kind husband's strong support system. I believe that relationships between people, be it love or any other connection, can only be maintained by constantly exchanging positive things, like usefulness, gain, affection, and trust. No matter how deep one side's affection is, if only hurt and coldness come back, the bond will inevitably break. just like my husband's relationship with his in-laws. No one lives their life to be unhappy. Even though my sister-in-law is currently freeloading off my mother-in-law, I believe she will realize the same cold law of relationships someday. I think my sister-in-law, who only knows how to mooch off my mother-in-law, but not give back, will also be abandoned by my mother-in-law eventually. So, I hope people who live under such an illusion, like my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, realize that no one will stay by your side forever, no matter how you treat them. Now, I think I will end my story here. The weather has gotten quite chilly these days, so please all take care not to catch a cold. Thank you for listening.